So Jamie, thank you for joining us at the Edelman Trust House. It's beautiful here in Cannes. So introduce yourself and tell us what jury you've been on this year.
So I'm Jamie, Global Executive Creative Director. I've been on the Entertainment for Gaming Lions jury, which has been an experience.
What's it like being on a jury? Like, talk us through the process. Like, what's the dynamic in the room? How do the case studies come up? Like, yeah, give us an insight into what happens.
So I think actually even before the room, I think one thing people don't realize is the amount of cases you judge before. So for the weeks on the build up to Cannes, you're going through hundreds and hundreds of cases, looking at everything. And so there's basically 2 rounds of judging before you even get to the room.
Wow.
So once you get into the room, there's sort of almost like a preliminary shortlist that's decided. And then at that point, we go through and then actually really do go down and consolidate and go, okay, this is the true shortlist. So it takes in everyone's judging from the previous rounds. Depending on lion category, there is also like shortlisting jurors as well to sort of make sure it's really fair.
So how many case studies do you think you've looked at across this whole process?
Hundreds, yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot, but I think it is actually very much the privileged experience because you get to sort of see just such a vast amount of work from all markets around the world, seeing what everybody's doing, seeing all the different culture nuances, who's doing things great, who's pushing boundaries, who's really inspiring change. It's really exciting stuff, to be honest. What's really great about the judging criteria when there's a split decision or the way the judging process works is everybody has a screen in the room. So everyone has their own laptop in front of them. And then basically it brings up the ability to vote in front of you. So you're sort of making a decision on a vote in front. So what's really great about that is I think that one, it's sort of slightly anonymous. So everybody can sort of feel quite comfortable in just making the decision without sort of, having to sort of publicly stand up and be like, this is the way I believe. So everyone is entitled to that decision. And then when it comes down to a split decision, it's decided by the lead juror.
Lead juror.
Jury president.
Jury president.
Decided by the jury president.
I love that though. I love the idea of you all having like screens in front of you. It's very like,
yeah, it was
very high tech.
I will say this, like when we were going through gold, like and deciding on which pieces to go gold and voting on that, like I was nervous. Like I felt the pressure on me as well, even though it's not my work. I have no invested interest in it, but I just thought there was a lot of pressure on us making the right decision because everybody's going to go and go look at that and go, okay, what is the best gaming work? And we need to be able to stand there and I think, and make the right decision and have the rest of the industry go, yeah, they sort of chose well. I'd agree on that.
In the jury room, let's say there is a piece of work that comes through that we've worked on as Edelman or one of our clients. What happens? Like, what's the process? What goes on?
So again, I think this is a really great thing that Cannes does to sort of make sure things are impartial, make sure that the work's judged and that there isn't bias in the room, is that they have a system. It flags if you've got any sort of affiliation with it, if you're from that network or that agency, and then you have to sort of recuse yourself out of the room. So you go out the room, they make the decisions, and then they bring you back into the room.
Interesting. So if it gets shortlisted, can you then vote on it? No. So you can never cast a vote on own work.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's great from an impartial perspective.
No, and I think it's really needed, and I think it is a really great thing that they do that because, and actually credit again to Cannes at the beginning of the jury experience, they give you a lot of training on like biases, whether that's biases towards work, whether that's biases towards sort of insights. There's a lot of training on that, and I think it's really good because you go in very much aware and trying to just sort of like make an unbiased decision, looking at the work all fairly and not be like, well, I'm from the UK, this is a really great piece of UK work. And, because sometimes it might not even be that it's from your agency. There might just be an inherent bias because you really associate with that insight or you really associate with that region or that game. And so they do quite a lot of training on that, which I think is really great and needed.
So obviously I'm here sort of doing some work with the Edelman Gen Z Lab. And I was curious, with the gaming category, how many entries did you see this year that were targeted either at Gen Z or at specific age demographics, as opposed to just gamers or gaming people?
Quite a bit, but I do think actually they almost looked a level deeper and went not just on age, but they went on communities. So whether it was looking at like cosplayers or whether it was looking at sort of people that played specific games or whether it was looking at sort of certain communities. So I think they sort of went, or the work that really popped through was the work that went deeper.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just, okay, they're this age group, they went down.
So what's something that's been like a running theme in the gaming entries this year?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I think, to be honest, there was quite a few themes that we sort of as a jury that we observed. And I think the work that really rose to the top for us was the work that didn't come in and change the game. So like there's a lot of brands that go in and they do change things within games. And don't get me wrong, there were people that have won for creating their own games or those own gaming experiences. But the work that truly resonated in the room was the work where brands had come in and sort of basically found a way around the existing gameplay or the existing structure, so they didn't change the thing that gamers already love, which is the game itself. And I think that was like the biggest change for us, or the biggest thing that we all went, oh my God, that's the work that we like.
And have you seen anything that doesn't tap into gaming culture? Like feels like completely like a misstep? Obviously don't name names, but like, yeah, any brands that you think actually you don't understand what gaming culture is today?
Oh God, yeah, every other agency. I'm just kidding, I'm kidding. But no, I think, yeah, there was some stuff. I think actually more the thing where there was a bit of a miss was where I think people came in with a sort of a lack of understanding of the audience and sort of almost went, oh, gamers are uncomfortable or gamers need better energy to game better. And it was like the generic insights that really didn't delve into the gaming audience and what they need and what they like. Those were the things that just didn't resonate in the room, because in the room were gamers. And actually, if you sat there and you were like, ugh, it just doesn't really appeal to us. And you could also sort of see it in the results, because I think if you sort of went with these broad generic insights, you were sort of getting a bit of a generic response. And the work where it was like really pointed or really sort of, informative, or they tapped into a current trend or a current sort of game that's blowing up, like those are the brands that really won.
It's so interesting, because I think a lot of people have been talking about how brands trying to create culture isn't working. So it's like, how do you tap into existing culture or moving existing culture? Do you think that's more true in gaming culture than other sorts of like, I guess, audiences or marketing?
No, I think it's probably about the same. Gaming is probably one of the last frontiers that brands have gone into in the last few years. I think we've been around social media, we've been in TV, we've been in radio. We've brands have sort of gone into those spaces. So I think we're still in those like early years of like brands finding their footing, people finding out what works, and also gaming's been almost relatively a bit of a safe haven where they've sort of been almost brand free for quite a while. So I think they're very aware when a brand comes in and does it badly.
And I guess maybe you can't tell us yet, but like, was there one case that really stood out to you? It doesn't have to be the winner, but one that made you go, that really gets gaming culture today?
I think I can talk about a couple of cases that really sort of, got me excited, and I think unanimously got the jury excited. So there was a piece of work that was, I've got to be honest, was a jealousy-inducing piece of work that I loved, which was done for Burger King. And basically, to give context, FIFA, the football game, or EAFC as it's now called, they've recently sort of had a bit of an update where they only used to record the sort of names of the main sort of players. But because of AI, they can have every name sort of read out from the hundreds of players around the world. So they found that there were players with the name Burger and the name King. So if you basically scored with Burger to King, and you scored the goal and recorded it, you sent it and tagged Burger King, you got free Burger King. And so I think they got something silly like 200,000 people basically submitting Burger to King, Burger to King. And it was just such a simple mechanic, because they didn't change the game, they didn't do anything. They basically just went score a goal with passing from Burger to King, and you win free Burger King. And you're like, of course I'm gonna just very quickly go do this. And I think that was a real great piece of work. I think the other thing that is a bit of a theme, and where brands were doing stuff that was really interesting, is where brands were sort of using gaming to either drive commerce or change sales, or sort of, even just go beyond brand affinity. And so there was a really great piece of work that was done by sort of a retailer out of Brazil, very similar to sort of Amazon or any other sort of big online retailer. And basically what they did is they found an existing game within Call of Duty where, simply put, people look like sort of inanimate objects, and they might look like a couch or a chair or a fridge or a guitar. and then they go and hide on the map while other people come and try and find you. And then if they find you
very cool.
and then shoot you, then they respawn somewhere else on the map as a different item. So this brand, Mikado, I think it was called, basically documented all the different objects they could be, mapped them to the system of all the stuff they had, and then they got a famous footballer to basically run around on the maps as these different objects. And the quicker people found them, the higher the discount on that object on the store. So they drove commerce.
Funny.
I think they got in sort of 45 minutes of the stream going live, I think they did an extra 1.3 million in sales, which is just bonkers from such a simple mechanic. And the great thing is, they didn't have to invent a new game. They didn't have to push someone to a special sort of place. This was an existing game. They just put it on a live stream, and then they got, unlocked discount by playing a thing that people already love.
Yeah.
So
I love that. It's also so simple when you think about like the idea that like any brand that has the sale mechanic could have done that. It's not
100%.
It's not like they're strictly using their own product. With this year, have you noticed an increase in entries or sort of quality entries from a certain market or region? Like, because obviously you're looking at so many global ones. Are there any that really stand out? Like, Brazil, for example, are they doing more in the gaming space or?
I do think, to be honest, when it came to gaming this year, South America definitely stood out. They definitely have had a pretty good year, I think, as everyone will see. They had some really strong cases in there. I think they really understood the gaming audience. I think they really sort of not only saw where they could come in and hack a moment, they also saw where there was gaming needs. They also saw where there was sort of gaming communities. They saw how to tap into them in a different way. They saw how to use gaming to amplify a message from another brand. I think they were really smart, and to be honest, they were on a bit of the forefront of gaming. I do think, a bit of a shout out to sort of mainland Europe and sort of around the Nordics and what would you call the region around like Germany and Berlin and all of that sort of stuff?
Like, what's that? The Central Europe.
So Central Europe, they definitely also sort of shone through this year when it came to gaming.
And you would identify as a gamer, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I guess. Is my badge showing as gamer? No.
It had to be a gamer to get on the jury.
Yeah.
I guess when you're on the jury, how much are you looking at the entries from the point of view of being a gamer versus being a creative director? Like how are you looking at the entries?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I sort of try to keep a foot in both, and I think as well, when you're judging on the jury, you really got to try and sort of almost take yourself out and not be like, well, I love this game, and so this piece really appeals to me. I think you've got to sort of try and stay a little bit neutral. So I do think I probably put one foot more into the, creative director space and try and remove myself and not get too personal or sort of too swayed by things that I already love. But then also I think it is fantastic to have deep knowledge, because there's pieces of work that looked impressive, but when you understood the gaming culture or what was already existing infrastructure, there were certain things where you're like, okay, that wasn't loads done because they were already sort of standing on the platform itself or, utilizing so much of the platform's capabilities.
Yeah. And I guess to that point then, coming in it from the different perspectives, how was the conversation in the room with the jury? Was it contentious? Did you have to fight for the ones you liked? Or was everyone pretty much aligned in the direction that they went?
To be honest, actually, I think I was pretty blessed. We had a very aligned jury. I think we all sort of went in, coming from very much different places, very much different backgrounds. But I think we all sort of had very much the same vision, which was great. And our jury president, she was fantastic. She sort of set out the criteria at the beginning and was like, this is the work that we're looking for. These are the sort of points that it's got to hit. And as we go higher up the award rankings, it's got to demonstrate these stronger in each set, sort of, each criteria stronger. And I think it was, don't get me wrong, there was strong discussions and we really debated things. And I think a lot of the time we would sort of go back and forth of well, did they really mean this? And, was that a real strong result? And also you've got to take into context, right? Not every market is the US, right? Not everyone has millions and millions in budget. So you've got to look at was that massive for that market, right? And sometimes what you go, oh, well, they had 200,000 people engage with that. And you're like, do you know what, for a smaller market, that's seismic.
Yeah.
That's huge. So I think, I think I was really blessed. We were aligned.
I think that's also nice to hear that as well when you say that about the like reminding us of not the US. I think that's how the shift in culture is happening. You know, culture is not being driven by the US as much anymore. So it's kind of good to see that markets like South America and Germany and Central Europe are doing better in these awards. I guess coming back to trust then and doing like a trust question. For a brand that wants to get into the gaming space or thinking about gaming awards for next year, what's the one thing you would say to them that they need to do to make sure that they do build trust with the audience, but also with the gaming world?
I think, to be honest, it goes back to my earlier point, is really understand what the audience, where they are at, what they're doing, and like how can you go in there authentically? Because I think there's a lot of brands that think they can either pay their way or they can just tell them, you know, like if we think sort of some more of our traditional paid methods, we tell people what that we want them to hear. And I think when you're in a gaming space, that's their place, that's where they're having fun, and you need to sort of show up in an authentic way that adds value. If you come in and sort of just hope to pay your way in, I think you're going to kind of get rejected or have lower results than you would have hoped for. I mean, that was where we saw the most value in the work that was succeeding. It wasn't even just the work that we loved as a jury, it was the gaming audience loved that too. So we weren't just picking what we liked, we were picking what the gaming audience liked. And I think that was the stuff that was absolutely smashing it. Yeah, there was a piece that was debated actually quite wildly, and it was done, and I had a lot of heart for it, I will be honest, I had a lot of heart. And it was done, and it did shortlist, and it just didn't make it above shortlist. And it was a campaign that was done, I think it was done out of Sweden, and or it was done in one of the Nordic countries. And basically, it was done by a lawnmower company that does those, you know, like self-mowing lawnmowers. And they wanted to attract engineers to come down. So as part of that, what they did is there's a trend online called It Runs Doom. And so this thing called It Runs Doom is where people online sort of almost take it as a bit of a sort of engineering challenge to see what screens they can get Doom to play on. So people have done it from everything from car stereos to electric fridges to, you know, I think even someone got Doom to run on a pregnancy test. Like it's absolutely crazy on all the stuff they've actually managed to get Doom to play on. So as part of this, they basically got Doom to play on the electric mower screen. And then they basically made it into an esports contest. They opened it up. It got absolute sort of bonkers press coverage. Especially for a smaller market, it got global pickup. And then obviously they saw a massive increase in sort of, you know, applications from engineers, and like engineers were really more interested in the company. So I just thought it was a real smart play. And I sort of loved that sort of dark, dry humor of It Runs Doom, and it was on a lawnmower. So why didn't it get past shortlist? Oh God, am I allowed to say? No, it's. I think there was basically a little bit of debate on, you know, was it right for the categories it was in?
Interesting.
Like a bit of question around what did it truly deliver, and I think there was. I mean, it had a lot of great things for it. I think ultimately it sort of came down to a bit of a split decision in the room, and the split decision went in the other direction.